Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing, man? Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How we doing? Man, Antonelli here. So today we're talking about hitting a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, or even harder than a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I get this question a lot. Can you even see the ball? How do you hit it? How is it possible? We're going to look at some of the statistics here because it almost shouldn't be humanly possible to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And then I'm going to give you some stories about when I played and now how the game has kind of transitioned from the last time I played till now with pitchers, their throwing velocity. It's pretty incredible. So the first thing I want to do is I just looked up some numbers to give you an idea first of how hard it actually is to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I should say just to see a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, never mind hit it. So if you look at a pitch, there's basically three parts of that pitch. There's the part where you're recognizing the pitch and identifying it. Then there's the part where a swing decision happens. Am I going to swing at this pitch or am I not going to? And then you actually have to swing. Okay, so if you look at the numbers, on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, it takes about 375 milliseconds for the ball to be released until it is caught by the catcher. And a blink of an eye is somewhere around 300 to 400 milliseconds. So essentially, if the pitcher were to release the ball and you were to blink, you'd probably miss it. You would not see the ball, okay? So that gives you an idea of how quickly the ball is getting from pitcher's hand to catcher's glove. Okay, so now let's break down that process again, okay? So you have about 100 milliseconds to identify what pitch is coming. So the ball comes out of the pitcher's hand. I've got about 100 milliseconds, right around a third of the amount that the ball is going to travel to the plate is used to identify the pitch. Now you work on this constantly as a hitter. One, in the game, obviously you're always seeing the ball out of the hand. I want to see it as early as I can. And when you get really good at this, because remember, not only do you have to see a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, maybe 100 mile an hour, not everyone throws 100, but a lot of guys do in today's game. Not only do you have to see a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but what if he throws you a slider or a curveball or a changeup, right? So I'm identifying what the pitch is and then where is it going. And this is what you learn over time, playing baseball for a long time. You start to identify pitches, you identify the spin of the pitch, you identify these small little changes in the hand, right? So where a fastball will look like this, but maybe a breaking ball or slider starts to look like this. So you see the wrist, the angle of the wrist changes, right? You've got a kind of a thick wrist here, you've got a skinny wrist here. You start to notice like just small little changes. And as a hitter, you don't like identify and say, oh yeah, I saw that wrist changing to this position versus this position. You don't really say that, but you just notice it because you watch it over and over again in games. You watch pitchers throwing bullpens, you track it. It's an accumulated, it's almost like your brain stores all this information from all these different pitches that you've seen, and then you're quickly, like again, 100 milliseconds, able to identify it. One of the reasons why hitting is so difficult is because of this, okay? So you've got the 100 milliseconds to identify the pitch. Then you need to decide, am I going to swing at this ball or am I not going to swing at it, okay? And so they say you've got about 150 milliseconds to be able to make a swing decision, swing or not swing, because then you actually have to swing. And the quickest swings in baseball, they say, are from 100 milliseconds to 150 milliseconds, all right? So first, this is why you ever watch the game, and this happens to me all the time. I'll be watching the game with someone, usually a non-baseball person, sometimes my wife. Hopefully she doesn't see this. And, a ball will be thrown in the dirt and the guy will swing at it and miss. And Laura will say, what are they swinging at? Why would you swing at that? That ball's on the ground. And I'm like, yeah, Laura, because the guy threw 102 before then, and then he just broke off a 93-mile-an-hour slider. And he thought it was going to be a 102 or 103-mile-an-hour fastball, but his brain tricked him. He didn't read it because he only has 300 milliseconds to decide, a little bit more than that. Not to decide, sorry, we just covered that. to actually identify, decide to swing or not, and then swing, okay? And that's why, because it happens like that. I have to give that explanation. So hopefully now, if you're someone that always says like, why are they swinging at that? That ball was up here. What are you swinging at? Yeah, it happens quick. So that's the first thing, okay? That's why that happens sometimes. But here's a little tip for you, okay? So I call this yes, yes, no. It's essentially getting into the mindset that I'm swinging the bat until the ball tells me no. So I only have one decision to make, and that decision is no. Okay, so we call it yes, yes, no, because I'm up there, I'm anticipating my pitch. I think about what pitch I'm gonna get, I anticipate it, and I'm thinking yes, yes, yes. Oh, I'm swinging. I'm preparing myself to swing, and I'm swinging. And so here comes the windup in the pitch, and I'm identifying it, but in my mind, I'm saying swing, swing, swing. I'm saying yes. Now the ball comes out. Now the only decision I have to make is, no, don't swing at that ball. That's it. If instead your mindset is, well, let me just see what this pitch looks like, well, then here comes the ball, and you've got two decisions to make now. You've got to think, you're thinking, yes, swing, or no, don't swing. And when you have two decisions versus one decision, it takes much longer. So you've got to try to get to one decision, don't swing. And that's why you'll see a lot of times when players take pitches, they'll go like this, and then they'll take it. They don't just take it like this. They don't do that. Unless it's an automatic take. Maybe they're just automatic taking, all right? But if you ever see a guy stand there and he takes the pitch like this and doesn't move, he wasn't swinging. He was just taking. There should be some type of, no, I'm not swinging. That's it, okay? So this is for coaches too. We could branch this off into a bunch of different areas. But sometimes coaches will yell at guys like, what are you going to swing at that for? You got to read that ball better. Well, I can't do that. If I just read it and don't move a muscle until I'm going to swing, you're not going to hit it. It's too fast, okay? Unless you play at like a really low level, all right? So there's some hitting tips for you too as well. Okay, so now, when I played back in my day, so my last year actually playing in a major league game against major league pitching was 2008. Now I played against major league pitching after that. I played in spring training, big league spring training and stuff. But that was the last time in a real game that counted that I faced pitchers, all right? And there weren't many guys throwing 100 miles an hour back then. It was a different time. Back then, if a guy came in and was throwing like 95, you'd be like, whoa, this guy's throwing hard right here. In today's game, everybody throws 95. We'll show that in a second. But back then, not as many guys did it. There were only a few. I'll talk about a couple, but here's a stat for you. Back in 2008, I had to dig deep for this stat. There were 196 pitches thrown at 100 miles an hour or harder. Only 196 pitches were thrown over 100 or higher, okay? That's according to StatCast. 10 years later, there were over 1,300 pitches thrown at 100 miles an hour or harder. That's a 7-fold increase. And guess what happens in today's game just a few more years later? Even more. Every year, there's more and more and more pitches thrown over 100 miles an hour. And it'll probably just keep continuing to go up and up and up, because you can just go on Instagram or Twitter or any social media account and you're gonna see pitchers all around the country with radar guns on, and they are training almost all year round now to throw the ball 100 miles an hour. And the more they train for it, the better they get at it, and they just keep throwing harder and harder and harder, and there's going to be more and more guys, and soon there's going to be so many guys throwing 100 miles an hour that, hell, I don't know, they're going to have to make some type of rule change for the hitters to make it fair, because it ain't fair anymore with how hard guys are throwing. All right, so that's crazy. Now, I was racking my brain trying to think of guys that I faced that threw 100 miles an hour, and it's hard to come up with a list. I did this straight off memory. So the first guy that comes to mind is Aroldis Chapman. He just kind of was getting into the league when I was kind of getting towards the end of my career. And we faced him once, and I wasn't playing. And I was on the bench, and boy, I was kind of happy, because back then, just think, there weren't many guys throwing 100, and then he comes in throwing like 103, and everybody, it was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I was happy sitting on the bench watching that game. I didn't want to hit against him. There was Jonathan Broxton, who was like right around 100 miles an hour for the Dodgers, closer. I actually faced him a couple times. So here's a great example. I'm facing Jonathan Broxton. He's throwing 100 miles an hour. I do two things. One, in my mind, I say, all right, I've got to be swinging. Like I'm thinking yes, yes, no. If I see anything over the middle of the plate and it's hard, I'm swinging. And that's what happened. He threw me a first pitch fastball. I hit a double right down the third base line. If he threw me a curveball, I wasn't going to hit that. Like no chance. I was just going to swing and miss at it, or I was going to take it. But I couldn't. You can't sit. You know, if you're waiting, if you're trying to be ready for every pitch, you're ready for nothing. You have to be ready for one pitch when a guy's throwing 100 miles an hour. So I was thinking yes, yes, no, boom, and I'm hitting. The second thing is I ain't waiting around. I was usually a passive hit, not a passive hitter. Yeah, you could probably call me a passive hitter. But I was like, if he throws anything, if I see a white thing coming over this white plate that looks, you know, the thing that looks like a house, I'm swinging because I ain't waiting around to let this guy blow 100 by me. So those were my two things that I kind of used as an approach against guys throwing hard. And then there was Daniel Bard. Daniel Bard, in college, Daniel Bard pitched to us, and he, one of our players who was doing the radar gun ran down the dugout and said, he hit 103, he hit 103. And then I faced him a lot in professional baseball. He had an incredible arm. He's still going. He's back again, still going. So he was a guy that could throw over 100. But there's not a whole lot of others. Like the other guys that I think of that threw hard were all throwing like, 95. And again, those guys were like, wow, this guy's throwing hard. So not a lot of guys throwing that hard back then. Like I said, in today's game, you've got more than ever throwing over 100 miles an hour. Check out this list right here. So this list right here it's guys, what they averaged. And this is 2020. This information, I couldn't find it for this past year, but this is 2020 average speed. And so this isn't highest speed. This is just average speed. And these guys are going to throw balls a couple miles an hour harder. Obviously, in order to get an average fastball right here, there's going to be some that are harder than this. Look at how many guys are averaging in the upper 90s and almost 100 miles an hour. This is unfair. How is this possible? So like I said, this is happening more and more and more than ever before, and it's just going to keep happening. But man, I'm glad I don't hit anymore. It was hard enough to hit back then when the guys weren't throwing that hard. I will say a couple things. Your eyes will get adjusted to the fast pitching, but there comes a point where, as we see, the eyes can only, so you could see a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but remember, it's not just about seeing it. You have to identify it, decide if you're going to swing, or you should be deciding if you're not going to swing, and then swinging, right? And that all happens so quick. If you blink, you won't see it, so don't blink, right? But your eyes get adjusted to the faster pitching the more that you see it, but there comes a point when, you can get adjusted all you want. It is time. There's just not enough time. It's just so hard. And that's why you see strikeouts up so much. And people will always say to me, the reason strikeouts are up is because hitters try to hit home runs. Power is definitely in play. Guys are trying to hit, guys hit more home runs. There's more power hitters. But in my opinion, the reason why strikeouts are up so much, that could be a little bit, but the real reason is guys are nasty on the mound. They're all throwing, look at this list. They're all throwing the ball upper 90s consistently, and the harder you throw a fastball, the harder you throw a breaking ball. The harder you throw a breaking ball, the nastier it is. And the harder you throw a fastball, like we said, time is against you. I can't hit a breaking ball if I have to hit a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. It's impossible unless I sit on the breaking ball. Sit on the breaking ball, it's impossible to hit the fastball, right? So it's just, it's very difficult. So that's what it's like hitting a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Yes, you can see it, but that don't mean you can hit it. And it is tough. It is tough to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. So let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. We'll talk to you later. If you've enjoyed this video and want to learn more about building the elite swing, check out our new course. We have over 2 hours of content, almost 30 hitting drills. We break down the exact mechanics that you're going to want to implement into your swing. I've put the link in the description if you want to go check it out.